Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Good morning, everybody. It's week 2 on the Kodan deck fighter. And got some lovely comments over the weekend. And yes, Jeff has heard the cries of the needy. He has heard the cries from the wilderness and has sent me a file of the pilot in the chair that I will be using. Now, I'm going to have to wait till later in the week when it warms up to actually print that, because we're cold out there this morning, and the printer needs it to be a little bit warmer. I don't have one of those little heaters that people have been putting in their printers to warm them up. Good news is, over the weekend, you may see some mess here, and that's why. Over the weekend, I started experimenting with some colors and went to the fabulous Hangar 18 to look for some suitable undercoats. And I've come up with something that is like an olive green with a metallic, and then a color shift on top of it. And what it does is it makes the most out of the facets that are built into the kit. The last thing that I want this to do is to look like a glass ornament. You know how a glass Christmas ornament is too shiny? I don't want this to be too shiny like that. I want it to be shiny, but not too shiny. So that's the delicate ballet that I am dancing. I've come up with this is the color. It's from Mission Models. It is Pearl Kiwi Lime. Hold it up in front of the camera. That would help. Pearl Kiwi Lime over the straight. Now, this is the gray primer. What you see here is that I have taped off the areas that are going to be the white and red stripes, so that I painted white underneath all of that, and I have taped that off so that I can put the body color over everything, and then it'll still have the white stripes underneath. I have also put these shapes on both of the engines. Now I need to do the perimeter masking on those, but these are black here with a red diamond in front, and then I'll mask those off, and then I can paint the overall body color. Getting these stripes to look right, they look right top ways, nice and square, but because they have to go over the different facets, it's a bit strange. You can't just take a straight rectangle and have it fit everywhere. It's gonna look kind of strange. So it's a matter of taking some straight vinyl and wrapping it in such a way that it looks, and I'm looking at it now, and it looks like these ends here are pointing in. They look fine from the top, but it looks like when you put it at that angle, it looks like they're cheated in a little bit, and I don't know if that's the final dimension. And of course, doing them on the bottom is and making them come out evenly is even tougher, and I've just noticed how far off that one looks. So I need to get another piece of straight vinyl and work at leveling this one out. So it's a trick. I tried just simply tracing off the decals from Jeff's file, and they're not quite long enough. I don't know what the deal is, but they are longer than the areas in which they are meant to go. So I am using them as a good basis and a good width, but they need to be longer. Okay, I've readjusted the stripes. Jeff's artwork is a lot closer than I was saying originally. It is very, if I had just shut up and done what I was supposed to do, everything would have been just fine. It does need to be adapted just a little bit where the two meet, and that could be something in the way the part was printed. I don't know, but it's an easy fix, and just do the decals. I'm sure the decals would, because you can slide those around. You can make those match a little bit easier than you can. Let's see, something like this. I'm just going to cut back and make that, just cut out that little corner and make those lines meet up. For some reason they're meeting up fine on the other side. And see something like this where you need to have the 2 points come together. I'm just going to trim that off and blunt that. Put a little bit of a patch of a piece of vinyl in there. There you go, just to close off that corner. Okay, so now I'm ready to mask these guys off perimeter wise and do the painting on those, and then I will cover that with one big mask to keep it clean. So let's do that bit, and then we'll be able to start throwing some paint at this thing. Okay, so I've got these shapes masked off, and they get a little bit of the old flat black, the old XF1. And that'll happen on both sides. There is a red diamond right in front of that, and that red will be the same color as the middle stripe. So we're going to hold off and paint that middle stripe later on, and we'll paint the diamond later on as well. Alright, so I'm continuing painting the markings on the wings here, and the red that I'm going to use is not a bright red. It's now in Jeffrey's illustration of his decals, he has it more of a maroon and or burgundy, and that's where I'm kind of leaning that way too. So I just put a drop of the black in with the red and just mixed it down a little bit dark. Now there are many ways to do this, many ways to skin a cat, and if your desired result is a skinned cat, then knock yourself out. I'm still trying to figure this out on the fly, whether the best way to do this was to do this marking first and then paint the hull, or to paint the hull first and then do the marking. I'm willing to be proven wrong on that, but we're going to go ahead and paint in the other diamond here, and all it takes is a quick mask of the 4 sides here. Make sure your black paint underneath is nice and dry. Make sure there is no wet red paint on your tape. Well, actually, you don't really worry. I'm not really worried about that because I'm going to be painting over top of all of this. But once this marking has been painted, I'm going to go back in and cover it up. And that includes this little white outer perimeter. So I don't know how well you can see. That's a darker red. Now my trouble is going to come in making sure that I match that when I do the stripes. Stripes will be done much later on. Right now I've just got those areas masked off so that I can keep the white underneath that clean. See, making sure I'm not taking any of that black paint off. Okay, this tape has got red paint on it, and you know how I feel about the contaminating properties of red paint, so all of this tape goes away. Now what I want to do is actually take masks that I've made of the full shape. We're going to let this dry, and then I'm going to put that mask, this solid mask, right over top of all of that to keep it clean. And because I know it is the same size, I know it will block that completely. If I took this mask off, I'd have to guess about the size of the white margin to make sure that it stayed consistent. But by putting it over the existing vinyl that is the same size, then I know it will do what I want it to do. So we're going to let that dry for a good long while. We're going to start, well, there's some areas I need to put masking back on, like the back of these engines and whatnot, so that I can start painting the base coat that's going to go underneath all of these metallic greens. And I'm thinking, see, this is the one I like. This is that straight pearl kiwi lime over top of the gray primer. And that's a good base color. It's not quite yellow enough though, so I'm wondering if I don't need to yellow that base up before I put the primer on, or before I put the kiwi lime on. Have to see what I've got here that that might accomplish that. I'm wondering if I need to make up another. These were nice things about using these parts that I didn't printed but didn't need, is that I could do some color tests. So I'm going to sit this back here, move it back, and maybe rebase coat this and see if I can get a better color. Oh my God, is that bright? You may be saying to yourself, because I'm saying it too. But that's an undercoat. We will be putting the color shifter dark green tint over it, and it will come out something like this, which is more in the league of where I want it to be. So that's just the undercoating. It's partially there. I'm going to let this dry because this is Mission Models paints, and they do go on a bit thick. So I am just going to let that dry and then come back and flip it over and do the underside. And what I'm counting on is on the color shifters is this prism effect. You can see what happens when it hits all those different facets. Here's probably a better example. It reacts differently on the different facets because of the color shifting nature of it. That's what I'm counting on to have happen here. So we'll let this go and then see what round 2 is going to look like. Okay, the kiwi Kodan is nice and dry, and I am going to darken it down now by putting the dark green shifter on it, and we are going to see how well that sits. I reserve the right to, of course, change my mind at any time, but also to brighten this up a little bit after it's down. But I want to see what this what the dark green color should see, because it's working nicely on this. That's working nicely, so I want to carry it large scale over the rest of the kit, and we'll see how it looks then. There, not quite so bright anymore. It's got the color shifter over it, and we're going to let this rest on its barrels for a while, because the longer that dries, the better the color shift is. It comes out. And I think we're in pretty good shape. We're going to let that dry for a good long while. Okay, so I've removed the guns to make them easier to paint. I can mask off this central area of the green and paint the gunmetal on these 3 bits. The guns over here. Now I'm thinking what I want to do is take the I'm going to take the masking off of here so I can see how the white is going to relate to that. I'm generally liking it. It could stand to be a little bit more greener, a little bit more foresty green, but I'm liking it. So let's remove these the yellow masks so we can see what the stripes are going to look like. Okay, I took that one off and it was amazingly successful. So I think I want to do this one on camera, just to see. I'll probably regret this, but I might not. Yeah, that's coming off too. Now that's both layers. And what I was wanting to do was to preserve that white stripe around everything. Lovely. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, let's take the rest of these masks off. Okay, now these are good and clean now. I'm going to put the big old red stripe down the center of them, the dark red. But yeah, they're a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of straight edge work, but we'll be fine. But yeah, between that and the stripes, it's really cutting some of that green down, which is, you know, partially the goal. You want to put all that stuff on there, but then it's going to take away by the time you start putting the detail painting in here. There's some gunmetal and there's some black trim and some decal or black rectangles and stuff. But let me get these guys ready to paint the gunmetal on first, and then we'll see whether we're going to do that tonight or not. I think I can wait in the morning to do the mask off just where the white's going to stay, so that'll let me paint the red in between. So I decided to go ahead, this went so quickly that I decided to go ahead and mask the stripes here. Now what you see is white is going to be painted red, and what you see is yellow is the white stripe underneath. I just need to get some masking tape and mask both sides of that so that it only exposes the red area. And that'll be what I'll do, a good place to finish it up for this evening. Okay, I think we're in a fine spot to leave it for tonight. I've got the gunmetal sprayed on the barrels, top and bottom of both the gun sets. The top gun is sprayed. The pulse cannon here is sprayed. This is all done with the gunmetal. Importantly, I've got the red sprayed on the stripes, but I have not taken the yellow masking off yet, because that red I want to let dry all night. Come back to that in the morning. I have no doubt that I will need to touch up the white stripe that's underneath all of that, but I want to do that in the morning when everything around it has had the whole night to dry. Morning, folks. It's Tuesday, and I've already been hard at work at the painting desk here on the deck ship. Now, I did a lot of this while the radio was playing, so I could not record any of it. I've taken off the last of the masking from yesterday to reveal the white stripes, and I've been touching them up a little bit here and there where I got some fuzziness from the spray. And then this morning I went through and I put down the black markings. That would be your dot right here, and there's some dashed lines that don't show up very well against the red, but they're there nonetheless. And I have to tell you that the colors that I have chosen for this present their own problems, because it's like painting chrome, but you know, on steroids, because every little nit and nick and whatever is going to show up straight through, just like when you're painting metallics on anything else. Now, I thought that would be a handy thing when it comes time for the faceting, which it does. I get to see all these lovely facets here, but it also shows off every little divot and bump from the supports that weren't quite as cleaned off as I thought they were. So you take the good with the bad. These are the bottom of the landing gear that I have painted black. I've got some pieces out in the other room that I have experimented on as far as finishes. I want to paint a flat coat over everything. I'm kind of concerned about what that's going to do to all of my nice pretty metallics. So I have, like I said, I've taken a trial piece to see what that's going to look like. I usually like to paint over markings and things like that, clear coat over them or something like that. I want to clear coat over, but not if it's going to ruin the overall aesthetic. So we are going to be working on the base today. I may need to run out to the hardware store or the big box store and pick up some wood for the base. The nice, whether it's a hobby store or the hardware store, just to get some sort of nice display wood. I'll pop these guns back in place. There's again some more markings underneath here. Of course, this gets painted black. The post gets painted black, and then I got to figure out exactly how I'm going to put any sort of wiring or power to the switch and all that kind of stuff. So the last pieces to glue in are these guys. They go straight in there, and I think that's just the look I am hoping for. So we're going to let this sit for a bit. I'll pop it back up on its guns. That seems to be the most effective way to sit it. And go see how that flat coating piece turned out. You'll also hear in the background, maybe, you'll hear the printer. It's warmed up a little bit more today, so more so than yesterday, so I'm printing out a batch of pilots, and hopefully one of them will turn out. Usually the first print in the morning is spotty because of how cold everything is. The last thing I want to do is I want to determine the height. Is this the right height, or do I want to go a little shorter? I think I could stand to go a little shorter. So if I knock an inch or so off of that, that takes it down to here. Yeah, I may want it, because the shorter the stand is, the little bit more stable it is. It's not wavering back and forth like because this is going to be kind of top heavy by the time everything is done. So I may want to knock another inch off of that stand. Okay, so I'm back from grab this piece that I had sprayed flat, and the good news is it doesn't seem to have much discernible impact on the reflectiveness of it, which is good. It also gives it a better feel. It's not as glossy, or not as not sticky, but it just has it just has a better feel to it. It's not as tacky, and since it's not taking anything away from the reflectiveness of it, I think there's not going to be anything wrong with a light flat coating over top of all of this. Don't need to plaster the thing, but I think a nice light flat coating would be well received, and we'll see how it goes from there. I'm working on the stand. I need to I've got everything shortened down. I cut an inch off the height of everything. I do like this better. I think it sits better. And once I get my pilots out of the printer, I can do the last bit, which is to work on the cockpit here, such as it is. Debating whether or not to try putting any sort of clear material in the windows. I don't think I will. I think that's just going to be a fool's errand there, but I can go ahead and paint the chair up and the pilot and all of that and slide it in. And not having any windows in there is going to make it easier to accomplish that. I'll slide it all the way back till it gets to that point, but yeah, I think that'll be the last bit of fun we need to have with it. And then it's a question of picking out any sort of little wee details that I want to add. Not too much scorching, not too much weathering. It's a video game aesthetic, so you don't necessarily need to have a bunch of weathering on it. Certainly not as much as if it were a realistic starship or something. Certainly not if it were a Star Wars ship. You would weather the bejesus out of it, but in this instance you really don't need to. I think cleaner is better. Okay, I'm back. I was out doing a bit of shopping. I had to pick up a base, something that I'm going to use for that. And while I was out, the pilot's finished printing, so I want to look in here and see if we got anything usable. Yeah, it looks like most of them printed. I will clean these off and do an inventory and see what we got. Alright, because I believe in the philosophy of more is more and mo is better, here's a handful of pilots. I left one of them on the supports so you can see how what you got to do to get a successful print is make sure that it's up off of the plate, that it's at a nice 45-degree angle, that it is adequately supported, and particularly at the lowest point. At the lowest point where it's going to touch that plate, you want to make sure you have the most supports. And it hangs off of the plate like this. And when you clean it up, you get something that looks like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint a bunch of these. I also printed some that were without the chair. This is my original chair from when I printed the original parts. And this is how well he fits in there. So kudos to the design work here, Mr. Fink. And like I said, I'm going to just spray up a bunch of these. I've got, just see. Because, it's like starting a car. You're starting the car, and you're warming it up on a cold day to go somewhere. You don't want to, go just around the block. You want to make it worth your time. So if I'm going to print that big old plate and get the printer going, I want to make sure I've got it, you know, make it worth the time. These are nice 1/72 scale figures that I could use for most anything. Now, here's a fallacy that a lot of people subscribe to. They figure that, oh, if it's a 1/72 scale, that must mean it's an inch tall. Well, yeah, if your character is a 6-foot tall strapping star pilot, then maybe he is going to be an inch tall. But these little Kodan guys, they were a little bit more than bug people. And they weren't a full 6 foot tall, so why would a 72nd scale be a full inch tall? No, they were little guys. They were runty. So there's no problem at all with those being runty pilots. I'm going to run outside because it has warmed up nicely, and I'm going to throw a coat of flat on the deck fighter itself, and then while it's drying, I'm going to turn my attention to the stand, and I need to build a little power box that's going to have the switch and the jack in it, that's going to mount in the back, and I'm going to map out where my rods are going to be. I think I'm going to scrap these rods and go with a clear acrylic rod in the front, and maybe just a little pad to touch underneath rather than the part that is provided. No offense, Jeffrey, I just think I wanted to do something a little bit different, because I'm also going to scrap the logo chunk back here, because I think I want to put a logo in paint on the base itself, and I'll have more room to do that if I don't use the little shaped bases. Okay, I'm back. I've just spent the last little bit making this box just out of L bracket and flat stock, and this is what's going to go at the base of that last post here, and I'm going to put the switch there on the front and the power jack on the back, and that's how we're going to power the thing. I've got the holes drilled for these stocks. I've decided to go with regular styrene tube. I was going to get fancy and try to do it with clear acrylic, but if I paint them black, they'll disappear and it will be the same effect. I need to drill a hole in this so that it can fit, so that this tube will go down through it. It'll actually sit over top of that. So I'm just going to sand that up and get some paint on it, and we'll go from there. I want to get these guys painted, or at least one of them painted this afternoon. See how that's going to go. Okay, so we've got the little pilot in his chair, and I've painted the chair in around him, but I am going to try to do just a deep coating of a dark brown, and then I will do a dry brushing of a orangish red on top of that to bring out some accent colors. And then of course his helmet, and then the helmet looked like it had big black bug eyes on it. That'll be something that even at this scale we should be able to notice. We'll do some black gloves and black boots just to set off a little bit of detail. Now I know it may be over simplified, but then we'll do almost a bright orange of some sort for the highlights of the the spacesuits, so that you can see them, because once this is pushed back into the recess of the cockpit, it's going to be kind of tough to see, but you can see we're starting to bring them out. And I'll do these for the other ones that I've got pre-painted. Okay, I'm out here in the living room on the big screen, and this is probably one of the best reference frames you're going to see. This is during the final Death Blossom battle, And there's two important things that I've recognized, and it's too late to do anything about because I'm not gonna. And that is that my stripes are way too dark. These are much brighter. And also my wing logos or my engine logos are too far back. Mine are on kind of lined up on this back line here, where I've noticed, well, particularly on this guy here, you can see that the logo is much further forward. That that red diamond on the front is actually split on this line here, on the demarcation between the first two segments of the engine. I've got mine to where it's lined up against that back one. So my markings are a little bit too far forward, and my red is a little too deep. But I can live with that because of the coloration of what's going on in the frame. Here you can also see the amount of detail that is not present in the pilots. You can see it's basically a red blob sitting in a framework. Now, it does look like there is meant to be a front bit of glass or whatever, cockpit canopy on the front of that cabin, which is not present in the model, and that's okay because none of the cockpit or none of the canopies have any window glass in them. But I'm going to put some sort of half wall up in front. Well, let me show you that. Let me take you back to the model here, but that's about as good as you can get. I mean, there's a beautiful shot of the underside as it's flying when Alex is sitting in the hiding in the asteroid and the fleet is passing over. There's some beautiful undershots there, but that's about as good as a shot as you get of the cockpit itself. It's interesting with it whenever they show a close-up of any of the pilots that you can see starfield around them, and particularly behind them, when there would be no way to see a starfield through, or you would see the back wall of the cockpit, you wouldn't see a starfield. But that's what we're dealing with. Here's where we are on the bench. Now, the more I look at that, the more I really wish I could repaint those stripes, and it's not going to take a lot of the world to do that. Maybe it's worth it. It's only Wednesday. I've got time. I could brighten those up. But here you can see the cockpit, and the lines here are much thicker than the cockpit in the movie. And I am going to set the camera down here first. I would like to set a front bulkhead. I know it's not canon. I know I'm straying, but I'd like to set a front bulkhead just right there, because even though Zor is a sadistic bad guy, he would never be so mean as to make his pilots put their little dainty feet out where anybody can shoot at them. See, this is what that looks like when you push that back about halfway to about there, to where those two bits line up. And look, even if you had some sort of clear canopy that covered this front, these still would need to be pushed back. Say you had a clear canopy that covered that front plane, you would still need some sort of bulkhead that would go right about like that. And I'm just gonna put that in there and paint it green. Just something to dress that. I know that was not in the movie. I'm fully aware of that, but it's something that I feel I need to do, so I'm going to do it. Okay, I have determined that we are not so far gone that I cannot go back in and paint these stripes a little brighter. There's going to be some overlap on these black details that we painted yesterday that I can recreate. I'm not worried about that, but that, after seeing that clip, that's the thing that bugged me. So I'm going to go back in, and luckily it's straight lines. I'm not going to cover every square inch. I'm just going to brighten up It's not like I have to repaint everything from scratch. I'm just brightening up these stripes. So wish me luck. I'm going to get the tape out and start masking. Okay, I've only got the bottom masked off because I'm only going to do one side at a time and then let this, because it's kind of delicate getting in and around everything. Got one side masked off, and then I'm going to let that dry, flip it over and mask the top, and paint that rather than trying to do both of them at the same time. So everything's ready to go here. Let's put some brighter red on that. And there you go. I've taken the masks off and we can see the brighter red now. I got the ugliness here. I've got a little bit of the overspray on the white. That's easy enough to clean up. We're just going to have to work our way back out. I knew something like that was possible, so that's why I did it that way. It's easy enough to clean that up. These are the little dots that are going to have to be resprayed anyway. So now we flip this over. And we see, now you can really see the difference between what's on the bottom and what's on the top there. Bottom and top. And now we do the same deal over here, only this is going to be easier to spray because the angles are different, and it's going to be easier to manage. Okay, I am almost ready to put another flat coat on top of this and put it on the stand and call it a done thing. But before I do that, I need to replicate and replace these black markings that were overlapping on the stripes that I have repainted. I have cut new masks for them. There is enough information there that I will be able to make sure that these line up perfectly with what was underneath them before. And then I'll just do a larger masking to do the perimeters. See, there you go. That's easy enough. And now I can we do the one on the other wing. Then I'll paint these with the black and flip it over and do the ones on the top. Okay, those black marks have been restored. And now I am ready to, see, there you go. You can see them again, paint it over them. I'm ready to take this back out, give it the last final flat coat, and then we'll be ready to attach it to the base. Alrighty, you can see I've got the Kodan logo in vinyl on the base. I have got the pilot secured in the cockpit, and I put that little bulkhead in front, and I'm going to let that cure. That's got a little bit of epoxy on it. I'm going to let that cure before I paint it. But there he is, in the pilot chair. I went ahead and painted these in. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it screamed out to me. It felt like it needed done. So we're going to, once that cures for an hour or so, we're going to paint that in. And I don't know whether I'm going to paint it green or whether I'm going to, because I don't know, I'm going to have a hard time matching the exact color of green, or whether I should just paint that gunmetal or another color and call attention to it. I could paint it gray and it would blend in just fine. But yeah, there she goes. And then after this is all set up, I will plug it in and turn it on. And there you go. All nice and sprayed, and the lights are lit. Got a little lens flare going on there. The stripe is brighter red than it was this morning. Here you can see lights going on underneath here. We've got the pilot in his cockpit. We've got the little blast plate up in front of the cockpit. Guns are still able to turn. This one is also able to turn, but there's nothing holding it down, so you just pick it up, reposition it, and pop it back in place. But what you're not seeing here that is more visible outdoors is faceting and how the interference paint, the color shift paint, actually is working very well there. Okay, the cosmic space sheet is out, so that means we must be finished with the build. Turn it around here so you can see it a little bit better. Don't pay no attention to that corner up there. That's where put something up like this to kind of block that. There you go. But yeah, we'll keep that all out of that corner. But here you go. There's your finished member of the Kodan Armada. Nice little quick build. And I think a worthy addition to the collection. So it will take its place of honor right next to the Gunstar ship that I built a few years ago. And that, in fact, is going to finish the Kodan deck fighter model build. I'd like to thank Jeffrey Fink once again for allowing me to be a guinea pig for his fine kit. I think the refinements he made on each step just made it better and better. So still some things, you know, there's always some, you know, backseat driving and second guessing you might do. But the improvements he made are worlds better over the original set of parts that I got. About the only thing that I would do, well, there's a few things I would do differently next time, but I would do a better job at mapping out those stripes. I think the secret is to put the front leading edge and the trailing edge designs down first, and then make the top and bottom kind of match to those, because while they look good, they look good off of each other, I could still see things where I might have, you know, pushed them up a little bit. And that's, again, something, if you're using decals, you can kind of play with those and see what looks best. Not so with when you're painting them. And then, of course, I would have moved the side logos up further to make them more accurate. But I got a kick out of this kit. I really did. Went together really nicely. Printed like a dream. The new printer is a lot to credit that for, but also just the sharpness and the crispness of the files to start with. And that's it. Who knows what we're going to be building next week? I know it's only Thursday. It's only the gateway to the weekend. Still have another day this week, but I have to tell you, I have a project on this out of camera here that is so secret and so hush-hush that I can't even joke about it. It's a test shot for something that will be coming out next year. And I can't even, any speculations will be met with radio silence, because I can't, seriously, I can't even joke about it. So I'm going to be working on that this weekend, and it's probably starting tomorrow. So I think I'll go ahead and put this up tonight, even though it's only Thursday, and then just call it a long weekend for me, and then we'll start on something Monday that I don't even know what that's going to be yet. I'll have to pull something out of the stash because I don't have anything wildly pressing. I don't know. I honestly don't know. So until then, when we'll figure it out, y'all be good. Be good to each other. Be safe. Be smart. Do your holiday shopping early. And we'll see you here next week.
What do we do?